Hi, and welcome back to Book Banter. Today we're talking with Tracey Lange, who was born and raised in New York City before heading west to graduate from the University of New Mexico with a degree in psychology. After owning and operating a mental health services company with her husband for 15 years, she completed the Stanford University novel writing program while working on her first novel, the New York Times bestseller, We Are the Brennans. Tracey currently lives in beautiful Bend, Oregon with her husband, 2 sons, and a beloved German Shepherd. Please welcome Tracey to Book Banter. Hello.
Hi, Tanya.
Thanks so much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We are loving We Are the Brennans. Actually, I just announced this morning that it is this month's ebook giveaway.
Oh,
Readers who subscribe to my newsletter get the chance to win a book every single month, and I was like, yeah,
okay.
we have to share We Are the Brennans. I was like, and yesterday was Patrick's Day, and I'm like, oh,
Yes,
we're all in.
it always gets a little extra love on St. Patrick's Day. Yeah.
I bet. Oh, I saw the post from O apostrophe. That was
Yes,
awesome.
I love that. She did that when it first came out, and now every year she reposts, so it's great.
I love it, and she does such great posts too.
She
She's
does.
she's
She
definitely
does.
someone to follow with O apostrophe
Yes.
on Instagram.
And I love the O apostrophe. That was my maiden name, O apostrophe. O'Hare, like the airport, so even better.
Nice.
Yeah.
I love it. It's a good coincidence.
Yeah.
So the first thing I wanted to say was I actually really like the information that your bio provides. Um, one, because you had a career before becoming an author, and two, you had a career as a psychologist, which I think is a huge asset when it comes to writing complex characters, and I'm sure it comes in handy for writing, messy families. So I'm curious, did you have aspirations to be an author early in life, or was it something that came to you later on?
I've always loved to write. Even when I was a kid, I remember using my own time to write like a little community newspaper that even had ads and things like that. So I've always loved to sort of write and certainly read. I've always been a pretty voracious reader. Um, but I can't, and my favorite college classes were creative writing. But I think I never even really seriously considered that idea that I could actually write a book or do it as a career. Just seemed like way too lofty for
Well,
me.
nobody really talks about that in school, that this is an option,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It just I was interested in it. I love to do it, but it was kind of like, well, I can't really actually make a career out of that. So I went into psychology and worked in that field for about 20 years,
Nice.
and with people from all walks of life. And in within that field, I did an awful lot of writing. It just wasn't sort of creative writing or fiction. It was more people, but it was telling people stories. I did a lot of sort of psychosocial assessments, especially once we had our business. Um, so all of that certainly helped improve my writing skills.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then, yeah, as far as the experiences of working with families, children, teenagers, adults dealing with all kinds of issues that they came from all walks of life, and all of that certainly fuels my writing now.
I bet it's a
Yeah.
wealth of resources, just even being present for how people respond and interact with one another. I think,
Definitely, just seeing up close all of that,
yeah,
all the trauma and how they deal with
yeah,
it and or didn't deal with it, or
yeah. There's
um,
always
and
that.
yeah, and although there are no storylines in my books that I could point to and say, oh, that's based on such a person, I think
Sure,
all of that feeds it now.
absolutely. That makes complete
Mhm.
sense. I was about 3/4 of the way through my psychology degree
Ah,
before I had to move and didn't pick it back up.
okay.
So
Yeah.
I get what you're saying though, and having, I think the benefit of working in the field with real people in real life situations definitely translates into how grounded in truth the novels come to be, because that,
Yeah, I hope so. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, we did. We went into their homes often and worked with them where they lived, and
Okay.
um, and where they lived as a family, and kind of saw all of that up close. So it was fantastic work. It was hard work, but
Hard,
it
yeah.
certainly is a part of what I do now, I think.
I bet. Yeah, I think it's a huge benefit. And also it benefited a lot of people along the way too. That is the
I
other
hope so.
side of that.
You hope so. Yeah.
We all need somebody to help us process and reflect, and
Hmm.
whether that's your best friend or your psychologist, we see the world through our own experiences. So having other people's input sometimes helps us
Right.
frame it,
Yeah.
pushes us. All those
Yeah.
things, right? Oh,
Yeah.
that's pretty cool. I love it.
Definitely.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So I actually, like, once I discovered your novels, I binged them all in about less than 2 months, actually, and I haven't done that in years. Like,
Oh, that's
it's been a
great. I
long
love it.
time. You became an
Yeah.
auto-buy author by book 2, and I'm like, "Oh, I I have shrunk my auto-buy authors down because it was getting rather
Hmm.
rather expensive." And
Yes.
now I'm
Yeah.
like, "Oh, no, 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 you're going on the list. Every time something comes out, I'm gonna be there with the pre-order." So,
Good. All right.
and I swear that anybody who starts reading your novels will feel the same way. It's it's just I'm a
Thank
sucker
you.
for. Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for writing them. I
That's
really
kind.
I
Yeah.
love them. They're fantastic family dramas, and each one hits the mark. So when you set out to write We Are the Brennans, did you actually already know that your focus going forward would be on those family type of stories?
I think I did know that. I mean, I didn't necessarily commit to that, so to speak, but it's what I love to dive into. You
Yeah,
know, I love to read. It's not the only thing I read, but it definitely is a favorite genre.
yeah,
And whenever I did think about writing over the years, I'd sort of have ideas. It really, they were all in some way about family and those relationships, and diving into all that dysfunction.
yeah. There's a lot of
um,
fodder there.
Yes, there is in everybody's family, you know. Some more
Exactly.
extreme than others, but still,
Yeah,
we all have it. So
yeah.
I think I knew to some degree that that's probably what I would stick with.
So it's what genre would you call it? Just family drama? Is that
You know, it's yeah, that's what people tend to just. It's
yeah,
an easy family drama.
okay.
Contemporary fiction is another one that I've seen and
Yeah, which
heard
is
people
so
use.
broad.
It
Yeah.
is very broad. So then you might start with that and then say, oh, well, you know, sometimes I'll say that and people kind of give me a blank look. And then I say, well, it's kind of messy families.
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
they get it, you
exactly.
know. So
Yeah,
yeah.
because everybody knows or lives with one.
Yeah, exactly. Like, oh, okay. Right.
That makes sense. Yeah, because I was curious because it's when you compare your novels to other novels, not a lot of them jump off the shelf at me. Like, I guess it's, the one that I can't think of the title, but there's a few, but I don't think that I've read one that just hits the family so on point. I think that's a real strength. So, yeah, keep
Yeah,
going.
there's definitely a whole. I think there's a lot of authors out there that write under that same umbrella, but we all do it a little bit differently.
Yes,
Some might have a little more suspense in there, or
that's it.
you
Yes.
know, and the suspense comes in different ways. Mine's definitely a
Yeah.
little bit more of a slow burn,
Yeah.
you know, so it all depends on kind of what, on your taste. So it's so
Yeah.
subjective, right? All
Absolutely.
reading and
Yeah,
yeah.
reading is
So,
completely subjective, and
mhm.
that's when you say that slow burn, I go, "Oh, yeah, yeah, that's why I love it."
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
exactly
some
why.
people it might be slow, you know, it's just again, it just depends on kind of what resonates with you.
That's so true. Yeah, and it's not a one size fits all. It's
Mhm.
yeah,
Definitely not.
that makes sense. I do imagine that hanging out with the Brennans and the Connellys and the McCrays is a lot of fun. Can you tell us a little bit about how your writing process goes, or how do you how do these fascinating family members show up for you when you sit down to write?
So so far anyway, usually I just start with a really very basic premise of some kind. The last one, McCrays, I knew that I wanted to just look at a divorce like really up close from both
Ah,
perspectives.
Okay.
I knew it would be a dual point of view. So there are little things that I was like, okay, I think this is what I want to get into next. And usually once I've landed on that basic premise, the characters start to come to me.
Mhm.
And in that case, Kyle McCray came to me. It kind of all started with him. And
Oh,
usually that's happening when I'm working on the previous book.
yeah.
I know
Yeah.
that also works so differently for people, but usually once I'm well into a book and I'm maybe revising, I'm in the later stages, that next one starts to kind of take up some room in my brain.
Totally.
And that's in the form of the characters. And so I just kind of spent months and months thinking about him. And then Casey, on the heels of that, Casey came to me, and then their family members and the community it's set in. And so I live with the characters for months and months before I really start that first draft.
Yeah.
And I'm not an outliner, but I'm also not a total, the whole
Mhm.
age old pantser
Yeah, I think there's a
plotter.
middle line there.
Yeah, I totally am somewhere in the middle. I don't outline. I don't know how my books are going to end when I start the first draft. I usually have a couple ideas about some plot points that may or may not pan out. But I also don't just kind of free write. That's sort of drives me crazy. I have a thing about efficiency. Like I can't,
Yes.
I need to know where I'm going, before I
Yeah.
start a scene or a chapter. So, but
Lamppost
really,
along the
yeah,
way. Yeah.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And then that kind of leads me to the next one when I'm building that first draft. So yeah, that's kind of my process. It starts with a real simple idea, and then I go into the characters. And when you get to know the characters well enough, to some degree, they tell you
They
the
do.
story. Yeah.
Absolutely. And sometimes more forcibly than others.
Yes. Yeah. The last book took me in some very unexpected directions, which was fine. It was just really hard, but
Yeah,
yeah,
I bet. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm. It's interesting, that you say that because I didn't see it coming, and I'm
yeah. I
usually
didn't
pretty
either.
good. That's what I figured.
Yeah, that was one case where truly the way that story unfolded to the reader is very much the way it unfolded to me.
I love that because that's just that co-creation of the characters and the story that needs to be told with the
Hmm.
person who's writing it. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
pretty cool. I
yeah.
always, I've heard the term discovery writer, and I think that
Mm,
I like that better than pantser because it kind of straddles the fence in terms of
yes,
you can have a vague idea of what the story's about, but not necessarily have an answer to all the things. So you're
exactly.
discovering
That's a
it
good
as you
way to
write.
put it, actually. Yeah,
It sounds
yeah.
better too
Yeah.
than
No,
pantser.
I like that. I like that. And there were moments I tried to fight it, but
Yeah.
in any case, it kind of felt like that's where it needed to go. So
There's very little you can do about fighting, the story process because
imaginary characters. Yeah, yeah.
they're they're bossy.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
They
pretty
are who they
actually pretty
are.
fun,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know about you, I have a little, 4-year-old tantrum, I go, "No, that's not where we were going," but then you start to put the pieces together and you go,
Yeah, that's part of
"Oh,
the, I think the magic and the curse of that first draft, right? You
yes."
just sort of have to go with it,
Yeah,
even though you're full of doubts, and
yeah,
then you can come back later and see what you're dealing with. But yeah, I
exactly.
just kind of listened to them for that first. I had to let go and just go with it. Yeah.
I completely agree with you, and it is I find, the time period before I start actually putting words on the page is the blissful time period for me. It is
Mm,
everything looks like a movie in my head, and they're
mhm.
like maybe 30-second clips. It's not a long movie,
Yeah.
but it's those repeat, and they keep going
Yes.
to immerse you in the setting, in the life, and everything like that.
That's similar for me. I'll have certain scenes that I think, gosh, that could really work well, and
Yeah.
but then when you sit down to that blank page is always the biggest hurdle, and you know, you can't make it better till you get it down, right? So
That's exactly it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, sadly.
yeah.
Boy, it'd be nice to have it come out brilliant the first time.
Right, yeah.
Do you have an average number of drafts that you go through for each book?
You know, that's so hard to answer for me because I've kind of whittled it down to the idea of probably as far as like major beginning to end drafts, I want to say somewhere like 3, 4, but that's it doesn't sound quite accurate because I do so much. I will go back. And I know we're always told like keep going, right? Keep going forward. And
Oh, yeah.
but if I have gotten to a point and I know back there I went off track a little bit, I will go back. And not polishing, not little things, but if it matters to the
Totally.
story and it's going to affect where I'm going, I'll go back and fix. So
Yeah.
that's why it's so hard to pin down. But I would say as far as major, like, okay, I'm going to go all the way back to the beginning with these points and go
Yeah.
through. It's at least 3 or 4.
Of
It could be
those.
5.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard
Yeah.
to say though.
But I know what you mean. It's
Yeah.
if a timeline shifts or a
Mm-hmm.
nugget of information is needed earlier, I'll do the same thing. Go back to wherever
Yeah,
that is.
because it helps me figure out where I'm going. So,
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
I do countless number of those. So,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know. And it's
yeah,
hard to the draft because
yeah,
I'm the same way. I think of the draft as beginning to end.
yes, yeah.
So
So I would at least, it was a little bit less with McCrays, probably a little bit less with each one, maybe.
yeah,
But somewhere in the 3 to 5 range. The
that makes
first one
sense.
might have been 6 or 7. It was a lot.
And you probably lose track as well. Like I don't.
Yeah,
It doesn't
yeah,
matter actually as I'm going. So it
yeah.
just matters the end result of the story, and that's
Right,
yeah. Because
right.
there's some people who work on their novels for like years, like
I
decades,
know.
and I think
I
how many
know.
drafts is that versus
Yeah,
getting one
yeah,
done in a year? Like
yeah.
what's I'm always curious, which is why I always ask. When I was talking to Heather Webb once, I said, how many drafts do you go through? And she's like, it's somewhere between 8 and 10. And I was like, ooh, maybe I'm not
Mm.
drafting enough.
Yeah, but then I work with writers that they will just stay on the course, and even though they know there's stuff wrong back here, they go and then they go back.
Ah,
So, but maybe they end up doing additional full, rewrites anyway, it all depends on,
yeah.
it's so individual. So,
And it changes with each book too. Like
yeah,
each book is a
yes,
little bit different because your
yeah,
characters talk to you in different ways, and
yes. And you
yeah,
learn so much from each book, and
you do.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Hmm.
I agree with I'm always trying to find the efficiency of it and to try and like
Yeah.
quell the anxiety of
Well, and sometimes that gets in the way because it prevents you from pushing forward. Like it's not going to be perfect.
no.
Um, but I
Oh god.
have a hard time. I battle that at times. Like, wait, you don't know exactly what this is going to look like, so I'll wait. It's the procrastination thing.
Yeah. And
So
it's also the keeping good notes so you don't lose that great idea you had, a few months
yeah,
ago.
yeah. I always have that note in my phone. So wherever I am, if something hits, I can
You can
get it down there. Yeah.
totally. That makes complete sense. I just have a problem with remembering where I put those notes. So like stick to one notebook and then I'd be fine. But I like, oh, random piece of paper, I'll scratch that down.
I know. I do that too. There's all over my little random notes, but
Right?
usually they're at
Like
least in one place. So,
post-it note myself to death.
yeah.
Pretty much. So what I appreciated, and actually, so this is a funny story here. The transitions that you put in through your books are done with such a deft hand. The ending, beginning chapter transitions with the large cast of We Are the Brennans is absolutely brilliant. Um, and but there's another level. You've mastered the subtlety of transitioning through points of view throughout all of your stories. And it's not just, chapter breaks or anything like that. And I actually called a friend of mine and said, okay, I need you to read this. And I need you to tell me, how is she doing this? Because she's very analytical to be able to look at story structure.
Right.
And I'm like,
Hmm.
because it is so deftly done that I'm like, I don't know
Oh.
how you're doing it. It's fantastic. So do you see that while you're writing, or is that something that comes in with revisions? Because Well done.
No, thank you again. Really, that is all there from the beginning as far as the different points of view.
Wow.
So
Wow.
far with each book, and as far as that line of dialogue in the first book, yeah, I think I put that in there to help myself. It kind of gave me a structure with so many points of view, and I didn't know if it would make the cut. I thought
Right.
perhaps, yeah, somewhere along
Yeah.
the line, editor
Somebody's
might
gonna go,
say, "Oh,
uh-uh.
right," like it's a little kind of a
Yeah.
gimmick, but everyone loved it and
Oh,
went with it, and I've gotten a lot of people enjoyed that. So,
I thought it was
um,
brilliant.
yeah, it was just a great way to transition. But
Yeah.
um, so far with each book, all those points of view are there from the beginning, and I'm pretty linear.
Yeah.
It's not like I write one point of view and then I just kind of start with whichever character is going to kick us off. And then that leads to the next chapter. And there's a lot of consideration about, whose head should we be in for this next chapter?
Right.
What makes the most sense?
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of consideration about that because depending on what's happening in that scene or chapter, that's going to dictate whose head we're in.
Absolutely.
Um,
Makes
so
sense.
it does slow the process up. I'm going through this right now with my newest one because in those beginning chapters, you definitely have to sort of stop and really get to know that character. And anyone who has a point of view, at least in my books, is definitely going to have an arc and a
Yeah.
whole bunch of background, and so it's a
And you
little
have to come to the
slower.
desk knowing all of that.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, but it's great. It's a great way to dig in and really get to know your characters, and then it can go a little bit faster moving forward. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're all there from the beginning. And
Wow.
again, I had so many points of view in Brennan's. I thought someone's going to tell me I can't do this, but I
It
went
just
with
is
it, and in
effortless,
the
though.
yeah, and then in the end, everyone said, "Okay, I think it worked." So, because
It
there was a
really did.
time, not that long ago, where we were told, the fewer points of view, the better. That
Yeah,
confuses people. But I love multiple point of view, and a
I
lot of
do
people
too.
do. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I do too. And I also think that we're often told too is that you can't end and begin a chapter with, say, dialogue, for example, throughout the whole thing. Like we have to vary it up so the reader doesn't get bored. And yet
yes,
that your use of dialogue everywhere was what kept me glued to it. Because now I'm like,
uh,
I want to know what he thinks. so,
yeah, yeah.
so
I think part of I think some of that was a product of not knowing any better. Like
ignorance
I
is
look back
bliss.
now
Yeah.
and I kind of question, like, wow, those chapters, some of those chapters didn't necessarily follow what would be considered the best scene structure or chat,
Right.
right? Because I was
Right.
getting to that line of dialogue, but it's just an example of like maybe what I didn't know was really a good thing, and because
I've, I don't think
yeah,
anything is wrong with it at all. I think it's
yeah,
brilliant.
yeah,
And I think
yeah,
sometimes that, knowing the rules and then breaking them is completely fine,
right,
right?
right.
I think if you didn't know the rules and you just went, it wouldn't have had as much punch to it because,
Yeah, if it works, it works.
yeah,
That's when people ask for tips, and I'll like, yeah, you could do that, but then you can also do it your way, and it might work
yeah,
out. Like there's
yeah,
no,
exactly. And
yeah,
that's the thing about writing is every author comes from it from a different perspective and a different
mhm.
angle, and you could give the same, you know, 10 elements of a story to 10 different authors and you'd get 10 different stories. Like there's
Yes,
just you would never get the same story. So
100%. Yeah,
which is kind of
everyone would
magical.
take it in a different direction. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's awesome actually.
I think that's why that whole idea of like, yeah, every story's been told, but not the way you can tell it. So yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, it's not just one of those pump you up quotes. It's actually real.
no, it is real. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. So when you write a novel, is there anything specific that you would like the readers to impart as they've read?
You know, that's a hard question just because I think I've been surprised at times what people take away
Yeah.
um, from my
Yeah.
books. I'll just get an email or message about something that hit someone a certain way, and I won't even have intended that or
Right?
really
Yeah.
thought about it. And
Yeah.
so everybody takes different things away. Again, so subjective. But I
Yeah.
guess when people reach out and talk about sort of digging into the gray, I guess, that
Yeah.
idea that so little, nothing is simple,
Yeah.
nothing in life is black and white.
Mm-mm.
Um, and just putting yourself in other people's shoes and trying to look at it from their perspective. Seems
Yeah.
like we could use more of that in
I
general
agree.
these
I agree.
days. So I guess it's a pretty basic thing, but because that's what's going on with so much of what's going on with these families is just they're not,
Yeah.
if they just take the time, it's just building empathy, all of those things,
Yeah.
putting yourself in someone else's shoes.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Your vision of what could be going on for somebody else, and yeah.
Yeah, we never know. You
Yeah.
never know what's going on with somebody else and other relationships or whatever it might be. So,
Exactly. And often
um,
behind closed doors is, there's a whole
yeah,
section that you never see.
and you're usually just hearing one side often,
Mhm.
and
Yes.
there's always another side. That
Yep.
that whole, I think it was Mark Twain, there's always room for two truths, or some, it
Yes.
might not be him, but that whole idea, I think
Yep.
I very much believe in that. So I
Yeah,
try to,
absolutely.
yeah.
There's one side and the other side, and then the truth in the
Hmm.
middle.
Right.
Like,
Exactly.
'cause
Yeah.
it's all perspective. It's all,
Yeah. Yeah.
life experience that you bring to the table to have those interactions with other people. So
Right, we're all shaped in different ways, so yeah, that would probably be
it's
the one thing.
I like that. That is actually one of the reasons, that I write, is for
Mm,
that, is to have a reader be put in another person's shoes so that they can view the world and grow empathy
yes,
for
yeah,
others. That's
yeah.
yeah, that's my motivation as well. So I think that's a good answer.
Yeah, yeah, I just think it's so interesting to look at it from different, whatever the issue is, from different perspectives. And
Yeah, because you're not
um
that's what's safe about reading, is we can read
mhm,
other people's very traumatic life events and
right,
gain insight and knowledge from it without having to actually have gone through it ourselves.
exactly, yeah.
So I think it's actually, and some of us love, if it's gonna make me cry, okay, I'm in.
Right, yeah, that's the other, yeah, yeah, I agree, I love a book that makes me feel,
Yeah,
for
all
sure,
the
yeah.
things. Yeah, I
Yes.
completely, yeah. So I also loved all the Easter eggs
Oh,
because I read them so close together. It was easy for me to spot. But
good.
because I'm like, oh, look, those people are now in this novel. And I love that. And the locations and
Yeah.
things like that. Do you think there'll ever be a time where everybody comes together as a big mash of?
I haven't ruled it out. I love the Easter eggs too, and I have to give credit to my husband for that, because when it came to the second book and these two characters were going to dinner, he said, "Why don't you have them go to Brennan's?" And from the
Yes.
first book, and in my mind, I was being too logical. They wouldn't drive that far probably in Westchester. He was like,
Right.
"Who cares?" So, so that was, and people loved it. They just kind of got a
Yeah.
kick out of it. So in the third book, I did make a reference to both first books. I don't know how many people caught the reference to Connellys because it was much more subtle. So, but whatever, it's in
Oh, now I'm
there.
gonna have to go back and find it.
Maybe too subtle. But so I hope to keep doing that, and I would love to. I don't know if any of the characters were come together from the various books in some way. I'd love to find a way to maybe, in the next one, maybe there's some way to give some hint of an update to
Yeah.
someone, some of the characters from previous books.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, because
it's
they're
hard
probably
to
still hanging
naturally.
out in your head.
Oh, totally, they still, oh, yeah, they're still up there for sure. Once in a while, I most book clubs and things I do now about McCrays, but occasionally I'll still do one for, like, Brennan's, and it's like I could just pull it right up. It's not a
Yeah.
problem. Um, so anyway, I
Cool.
I hope to keep doing that, but
That's
it's
fun.
hard to do it organically, and not,
Yeah.
so anyway, we'll
You
see.
kinda have to set the intention and then figure out what's gonna trickle in. And
Exactly. Yeah.
it's,
So
I
I'll
could,
keep trying it and we'll see what happens.
that's fun. I love it. Yeah. Easter eggs are like the reward for readers who have gone through and read everything you've written, right? Like
I
that's kind of
know. I know.
I
Yeah.
love that. I think
Yeah.
that's a good thing.
I do too. I do too.
So I would absolutely love to see your novels become a movie. That would be fantastic. I'm sure you would love that too.
Sure.
That'd be
Yeah.
great, right? I mean, the
Yeah, of
book's always,
course.
but I'd still like to see somebody's vision of it on the screen. It kind of,
Yeah.
it's like completes the circle in my head for some reason,
I
having it
agree. What
visual.
a dream, right? To see the little world and the people you've
Yeah.
created come to life that way. It'd be amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. So is there any fires in the iron or?
Not at the moment. No.
Oh, interesting.
I
That
when
surprises me
Brennan's
actually.
came when Brennan's came out, I did talk to it was kind of cool. I talked to a production team and they were very excited and we kicked it around. But Hollywood is just this whole other
Yeah.
world. I mean, we think the publishing world is tough. That's a whole
Yeah.
lot different level. And
Yeah.
they had an exclusive contract with a certain studio and in the end they said no. So it's just, but it was kind of interesting
Oh,
to get an inside look at that. And my
yeah.
brother's actually a screenwriter, and
Oh,
so I've known a little bit about that world and how hard, again,
yeah.
publishing is hard, but it's just a different animal.
I think it's a different
So,
scale, right? Like it's
oh,
just
it's a whole different thing.
it's a
Yeah.
world.
So,
It's yeah, like it's a
yeah.
universe.
Yeah, and I can't remember who it was. An author we all know said once, if you actually sell a book to Hollywood, throw it over the fence and drive away and don't think about it again because it can be so difficult. So,
That
we'll
makes
see what happens. It would be great. Who knows? I do think we're moving into a time when those sorts of stories are becoming
yeah.
back more popular again. I think for a while, I don't know if it was COVID, we were checking out and kind of doing these big,
Yeah.
I don't know how many Marvel movies came out and these big, concept movies.
Shiny red
So
object over here, distract yourself.
yeah, maybe so. So it seems like maybe we're shifting a little bit and looking
Yeah.
for this kind of, so who knows?
A little
I
more
would love to.
reflective. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly my kind of story, obviously.
I would
Um,
agree. Yeah.
so yeah, it would be great. At the moment, I have nothing to report though.
Well, you have to, so everybody, I'm just going to pop your Instagram back up. So you have to follow Tracey on Instagram so that you get the news first.
Yeah, that's right. Believe me, I'll be happy to announce that if it
Wouldn't
comes
that be
to
great?
countless stories and just through my brother and a few other people in that world that, it can get, if there are 100 steps to get the thing made, you can get to step 99 and then someone says no.
Still,
So it's
yes.
kind of a heartbreaker. And there are lots of stories
That's,
about books that just are sitting on a shelf and,
yeah.
who knows if it'll ever happen. So again,
Yeah, all
different
the
world,
stars
but
have to align.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And then somebody with money needs to swoop in and pay for it.
Yeah, right. That's the bottom line. Yeah.
Exactly. So it would be great though, because I think it gets people talking about books. And I think that's always a win. So
Yeah, I agree. I
even though
agree.
people
Yeah.
may not consume it in book format, consuming it in film or something like that or Netflix or whatever would be still.
Yeah.
These are
And
important
it can
stories.
lead to further books or, yeah, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah,
Mhm.
totally. So speaking of further books, do we have something that we can look forward to from you? And I'm totally being selfish here.
No, I am. It's just so early that I honestly, it would be hard to even put a lot of it into words right now.
Yeah.
But I am on my next one. It is another family. They have their own set of problems. They have their own history. So I guess it's definitely the same genre, but a really different story. It does, I believe, take place in the New Jersey, New York area. So I am very
Okay.
drawn to writing about,
Yeah.
that area where I come from.
I love
Um,
that.
yeah, yeah. So that's, but yeah, it's very new. But it's, once I finally dove in, it's moving along. So
Oh, good. Oh, that's
yeah,
fun. Do you have
yeah.
a ETA of
I really don't. It's
no,
so, it's so hard to
it's hard
know.
to
Yeah, I don't have an ETA.
okay. We
I'm
just
trying
like
not to put, I'm very good at putting deadlines on myself.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Yeah. I hear you.
I'm trying to just go with it, and hopefully finish it this year. It's for, that would be my goal. Yeah.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, we will stay
Yeah.
in touch because we'll be we'll be waiting for that. I don't often reread books. I
Yeah,
read
me
books
neither.
once, right? But I could
Mhm.
see rereading some of yours, which is huge.
Oh,
So
that is a
that's
huge compliment. I don't do
that's
that very often either.
it
Yeah.
has to be special, right? Like it's
Yeah.
because I'm like, I already know what happens. That's actually one of my
Yeah,
biggest
exactly.
challenges with writing is if I know the ending, I'm like, but I know what happens, so I don't need to write it now.
Oh, no.
So
Maybe that's why I don't settle on my ending till later, because
I
then
think that's smart.
yeah.
I think that's really smart, actually. I think I might lean into that a little.
I just don't wanna rule anything out. I kinda leave that
No,
open. So,
exactly. I agree. Okay. So let's talk TBR piles. We love growing them and not always getting to read them, but we love growing them.
mhm.
It's an adventure. It's a date going to the bookstore and grabbing, visiting all
I
your old
know.
friends,
I love it.
walking through the
Yeah.
shelves, going, "Oh, I remember you."
Yeah, there's just something about walking in, right? Yeah.
Right? Like, "Oh, I've come home." So so if there's one book that you had to recommend, what would it be?
That
I
is
know that's like choosing
really
your
hard. That's a
child.
very hard question. Um, and I guess I was thinking about this, and I guess one book that I find myself I have the books I read that were just such an impact on me as a person, a writer. But if there's one book that I recommend so often, particularly to book clubs, but I would to anybody, it's all the Ugly and Wonderful Things by Bryn
Oh.
Greenwood.
Oh,
It
okay.
was out now probably 8, 9 years ago. It was a good read. I believe that year it was like the Goodreads,
Goodreads.
pick of the year, whatever that
Okay.
title is. But I say that one because it's so now people have such a polarizing reaction to that book. Like, some
Oh.
people love it and some people absolutely hate it. Some people who couldn't get through it. It's very controversial.
Oh,
And
interesting.
as someone that loves to dive into the gray, and that
Yeah.
idea that no one's all good or all bad, and
Yeah.
um it was I just loved that book, and so I recommend it
Ooh,
because it's good fodder for discussion and just for thinking about, if when
yeah.
on the surface you're supposed to really dislike certain characters because
Yes.
of what they're doing, but you find yourself rooting for them. I just think
Yep.
that's magic,
I love
so
that too. Yep.
yeah, so
Yeah, it's
that's
like,
why I'll go with that one. Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna so look that up because is it a negative character arc?
No,
No,
I
it's
don't
not.
think so. I don't think
Okay.
so at all, and it's not
Okay.
depressing, or it's
Oh,
just that
interesting.
it's you are just drawn into characters that are going through a very, again, controversial situation without giving anything away. And I've definitely read reviews where people said, "This is awful. I couldn't get through it. I had to put it down."
Yes.
But to me, it was just such a well-written book about characters that really you're supposed to, especially one in particular, you're supposed to kind of hate, but you just
Yeah.
don't, and you're
Yeah.
rooting for something that you probably shouldn't root for, but you're
Yep.
doing it because you love these characters so much. So
That's
anyway,
brilliant.
all of those good
Okay.
things.
Thank you. That's a great recommendation. I'm so gonna go look that up because I am drawn to that kind of thing as well, and I know what you mean that
Yeah.
it depends on where you are in your life as well when you read
Mm-hmm.
certain books.
Sure.
So if you're
Mm-hmm.
in a place where you're already struggling or things aren't as easy as you'd like them to be, and you read something that challenges you that way,
Mm-hmm.
you
Yeah, and
don't
it's
always
and
come away loving it, right?
no, and then I think it's also just being able to really look at a character's intentions.
Yes.
Even if what they're doing is really wrong in some ways, if their intentions are good, you still feel that
Yeah,
empathy
just
for
something to
them.
hang
Yeah.
your hat on because it's yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it's that I mean, and that's a really well-crafted character.
Yeah,
So
I thought it was great, but again, disclaimer, some people really don't.
yeah, you can say that about
Either
just about
it'll cause a reaction one way or another, it'll
well,
cause a reaction.
then I think the author did their job.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
Exactly.
the point. Not everything's
Yeah.
going to make you feel light and fluffy and
Yeah.
rainbows and everything like that. Some
Right.
books are hard to read, and they're hard to read for a reason. So
Yeah.
it's yeah. But you have to be in the space to do that.
Yeah,
So
sure. Sure.
you have to protect yourself as well in that
Yeah,
way. So
for sure.
totally. So
Yeah.
okay. So lastly, what book is currently on your bedside table?
I just started Dream State by Edward
Oh,
Puckner, I think is how you
yeah.
probably pronounce that. And I don't even know, I went into it blind. Of course I've seen it, the Oprah pick,
Yeah.
and I heard a couple people talking about it. And I saw, okay, so I picked it up, and so far I'm in. It's great writing, and I'm
Nice.
really liking the story so far. So that's what I'm reading right now.
Oh, cool. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it. That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for
Yeah.
joining us today. This was really, really fun, and I'm
Yeah,
thrilled
for
that we
me
got to
too.
connect.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you
Let me
so
know how
much.
you feel about that book if you pick
I
it up.
will. I'll be messaging you to let you
Good.
know. I'm going to go and
Okay.
look it up right after.
Good. All right.
So, friends, I encourage you to check out all of Tracey's novels at your favorite online bookstore. I would start with We Are the Brennans and read in order, even though they're you don't have to read in order, but I would read in order just for the Easter eggs along the way. So start with the We Are the Brennans, and you can get it just about anywhere books are sold. And you can get it also in audiobook. I listened to some of them on audio as well. So great narration, loved
Mm.
it. Fantastic. So, and once you read one, guarantee you're going to read them all. So until next time, friends, happy reading.
Bye.
Bye.